I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Sorry.
I don't have time for this shit. Let me clear this way out. Back to right,
Hello and welcome back to Socks and Sandals, and unfortunately we will not be getting all of the achievements in Wet today. I originally had plans to have my 100th full completion on Xbox, as well as the game I used to get the 250,000 gamer score be Wet. But after beating the game on hard and then trying to do the challenges, the boneyard challenges, whatever the fuck they're called, I just could not suffer through it. The hard playthrough was difficult, and in order to get all of the achievements I would have had to play through it another 3 times, and I just did not have the drive to do that after that first playthrough. And with the boneyard challenges, when you play through the campaign, there are certain, I think it's like the second chapter forces you to do some challenges with the pistols and then the shotgun, and later on there's the crossbow and the machine guns, or whatever the fuck they're called. And while I was playing the campaign, I went ahead and just got the gold medals in those. But come to find out, once you beat the campaign, you actually unlock the challenge area, and you have to do all of that all over again. Like, it didn't save the progress for those. So I was just completely broken by Wet. But I guess I can talk about my experience with the game. My main, like, I can see the game being fun if you're not wanting to go for the full completion, but the, like, traversal, the movement thing, which is the main draw of it, like the bullet time stuff, was finicky at times. Like, the aiming while you're in bullet time, it seemed that I was aimed directly at something and it just would not hit it. I don't know for why, but, and there were times where, so to do a wall run, you hold LT next to a wall. Sometimes she'll actually do the wall run, but most of the time she decides to just run straight up the wall. And when you're trying to do those fucking boneyard challenges, you need every second you can get. So when she decides to waste seconds by running up the wall, that sucks. There was also issues with when you're like, what the hell do they call that? You're hanging from a ledge and you're going along it. There's a word for it, but I can't think of it. When the camera changes, the controls change, and there was a point in one of the boneyard challenges where no matter how, like it just didn't seem to respond to me holding back. Instead of her, like, when you hold back, she'll look behind her to jump to something behind her. She would just turn around and go back the other way. So that was really frustrating. When I beat it on hard, I was just angry, like, the entire time. I don't think at any point in the game did I actually enjoy playing it. So I couldn't foresee it being any better on the ultra hard difficulty. So I just opted to not do it. Another point against it, the parts where, like, she gets blood on her face and everything turns red, those fucking sucked. Like, none of those were any enjoyable. It's supposed to make you feel like the ultimate badass or whatever because she's gone red with rage and is just, like, unstoppable. But yeah, I hated those parts. Anytime that event happened, I was upset. So, yeah. Sorry, not a fan of Wet. The reason I played it was because people said it was like underrated or whatever, and maybe it is on lower difficulties when you're not trying to get all the achievements, but yeah, was not a fan. So what I opted to do instead was get a achievement HuntWhores done in Call of Duty Classic, which is the first Call of Duty game, but re-released on the Xbox 360. The first achievement we get is a staple, well, it used to be a staple in Call of Duty games, completing the training. After we completed the training, we unlocked First Termer.
Good job, Private.
U.S. campaign, that's where the game starts, is with the U.S. campaign. Wasn't too difficult. The first actual mission after the training was so short that I thought, oh, well, there's no way I could make a video on this if this is how the game is going to be. Like, I think the first mission I completed in like 7 minutes. Well, probably not 7 minutes, more like 10 or so. But once we get into the... It's the third mission, but only the second one where we're actually fighting people. That's when the difficulty ramped up. There's a section at the start where your squad is running across an open field. My first run through of this, I didn't have any issues. Yeah, I made it pretty far my first attempt. There's an issue with this game with the checkpoints where there's just sometimes where you won't get a checkpoint. So you could probably play through like a third of the chapter and wouldn't get a checkpoint. And that's what happened here is I made it to like pretty much almost halfway through the chapter and fucking died and had to restart all over again. I don't know what exactly is the trigger for some of them. Some of the checkpoints you have to literally be in like the perfect spot for the checkpoint to actually trigger. Sometimes you've got to kill all of the enemies in like a time limit, but it's a time limit unbeknownst to you, and then sometimes you just won't get it no matter what you do. Yeah, this chapter was not easy in the slightest. The field you run through at the start, there's 2 machine gunners at the opposite end. They were kind of easy to deal with, but the like what are they called, the ballistics that are being dropped on you, those are what really gave me trouble there. But after you get across the field and through the church, you come to this broken wall, and then there are several Nazis inside an old farmhouse. This is where like the peeking mechanic comes in handy, and not like the lean mechanic that's in the game, but what I would do is like butt up against the wall and then just kind of scoot along it until I got like the slightest peek of an enemy. Sometimes it works, sometimes the collision on the wall fucks you, but yeah, that's probably the best mechanic to use throughout this veteran playthrough, which I forgot to mention I'm doing. So achievement, obviously there's a veteran campaign in this one. The veteran campaign in this Call of Duty is different in that you don't recover any health. It's kind of like World War II on the Xbox One. Your health is provided to you through health packs, but with this one on veteran, you get no health packs. So the health bar you have in the level is what you get. But I didn't really see a health bar even needing to be needed during this, because you're pretty much dead in 2 shots anyways. So it really didn't matter how much health you had. So after we got through the farmhouse, there's not really anything else notable about the third chapter. There's a point where you come to another bombed out church, and there's like a flak 88 that you have to destroy. I struggle with this part a bit. Just the thing I learned about this Call of Duty in particular is it relies heavily on trial and error. Like with other Call of Duties, you could pretty much know like when your teammates advance, it's clear. In this one, they will not advance until you move up to a certain trigger point. So most of the time I found when I would move up and be unaware of an enemy being present, I would die. And that was really frustrating, just the trial and error nature of it. But I quickly learned to just constantly be in iron sights and check all the corners, which I guess is what you're supposed to be doing. But yeah, this flak 88 part here gave me some trouble just because I had to keep redoing it and learning where all of the enemies were and where they would come out of. But we got through that, and that's the 3rd chapter done. So into the 4th chapter, there's you start and you're in the town that you finished the 3rd chapter in. A tank shows up, and it took me a minute to figure out how to get past the tank. You blow that one up, and then another one shows up. But the checkpoint that gave me trouble is there's a spot where there's a sniper and a bell tower, and then there's like 3 machine gun encampments in an open field, and your starting point is behind this like broken wall. And I don't know what the developers expected you to do here, because the moment you poke your head out, you're just dead with machine gun fire. And the issue I ran into is that it checkpointed like right when I was just directly in front of the hole. So a few times I would just spawn and be dead. But I was able to actually get through this part by peeking out and then taking out the snipers. It seems like luck based on whether or not the machine gunners will immediately notice you or give you a chance to actually snipe them. But it was just luck of the draw in that. Basically, the best option was to take out both of the machine gunners and then quickly get on the other side of the wall. I found that if you hide in a bush, the enemy's AI can't see you. Like, even if you're poking through the bush, as long as most of you is in the bush, the enemy won't be able to spot you. So once I got over the wall and into the bush, I was able to actually take out the sniper and a few other enemies that were in that area, and then we end that chapter by getting into a car. So the start of the next chapter is in the car, and you're driving to give, I don't know, word to some other sergeant. You would think that since you really have no bearing on the situation here, you're not driving the car, there would be a little leeway, but there's not. It's very easy to just get demolished here. You have the ability to lean out of the car so you can shoot people, and I forgot I was leaned out of the car a lot of the time, so would just be taking unnecessary fire. But the part that sucks in this one is later on you're trying to, like, the chapter wasn't too difficult comparatively to the last two, but there's a part where you're trying to get into a German car and just Germans swarm the vehicle for whatever reason. They have to hotwire it or something, and at first I was trying to like actually kill all of the enemies, but it's not like you have to. So what I ended up doing is just hiding behind the car and waiting for them to just get it started so we could go. And then once we got into the car, there's two enemies that are in a yard. They're behind a wall in a yard next to you. So, of course, the first time I actually got into the car, they immediately killed me. So, once I killed those two enemies, we advance in the chapter, and the chapter ends. Fifth chapter wasn't too difficult. You're going around blowing up flak 88s, and this is actually where I got the Gunslinger achievement, which is to kill an enemy with the pistol, with a rifle, with a submachine gun, and a grenade without dying. When you're in the trenches, getting to, I believe it's the first flak 88 you have to blow up, I got my pistol kill, my rifle kill, and then I threw a grenade over the wall to where the enemies at the flak 88 were, and got my grenade kill. And then once I advanced further in the trench, I killed an enemy with the submachine gun and got my submachine gun kill, unlocking the Gunslinger achievement.
Hey, cover me!
He's in here!
Hey, cover me!
This is probably like, I don't know, 3 hours into playing the game, and I've only just unlocked my second achievement. Yeah, Chapter 4 wasn't really too difficult. Not really any spots that were too frustrating. Once into Chapter 5 of the U.S. campaign, we were tasked with rescuing, well, actually, we're storming a villa, and this one wasn't too bad either. There were a few spots that were frustrating. The U.S. campaign is probably just very easy, but mostly because the AI, like the teammate AI in this game, are actually decent. Like, they'll actually get kills and stuff. So anytime you were with other soldiers, it was fairly simple. The only real checkpoint I struggled with in this chapter is a spot where you're coming into like a foyer and there are just enemies all around. Again, it's that trial and error thing where you just have to basically die to learn where the enemies actually are so you can kill them. That was really the only difficult checkpoint for this chapter. Once you finally get to, I think it's Captain Price is in this one. Once you actually get to him, that's the end of the chapter, and then the next chapter is you're storming this like prison camp to rescue Major Ingram. And this chapter wasn't too bad either. Your teammates do most of the work here. The only thing that was worrying is the time limit of this, but I think I finished 2.5 minutes left, so it's a little lenient as long as you're basically just advancing the whole time, so not too bad. But so after we rescue Major Ingram, that is the U.S. campaign done, and we unlock the Old Glory achievement. So next up we move on to the UK campaign, and this is where the difficulty ramps up. So your very first mission, it's only like if you were probably playing this on Greenhorn, it would be maybe 3 minutes long. But on Veteran, this mission sucks ass. It's mainly due to, so you like drop down into this area and you're supposed to be keeping the Nazis from getting across the bridge. Once you drop down in the area and you take all of the enemies, you move across the bridge and a tank shows up. Well, the objective clear point is on the opposite side of the road. The tank is in the middle of the road, and fucking Captain Price wants you to go across the road in front of the tank and talk to some dude over there. I don't know if I was supposed to be getting... I was, because later on, I actually get a checkpoint after talking to Captain Price, but the first few times I tried it, I did not get a checkpoint talking to him. So once the tank killed me, I had to restart the whole chapter over. You're supposed to go across the road directly in front of the tank. Obviously, the tank has a machine gun on it, so it was just very easy to get taken out. But once you do that, and you talk to, I think his name is Waters or something, maybe? The guy that Price tells you to go talk to so he could fix the Flak 88 gun so we could take the tank out. Once you talk to him, you then have to run back across the bridge, still in front of the tank, and get to the Flak 88 gun. It was just super frustrating because I don't know what the game expects you to do. There's no cover. It's just, again, luck of the draw whether or not you get taken out by the tank. But after doing that, the chapter's over. Once you blow up the tank, that's the end of the first UK chapter. The second chapter is the next morning in the same city. You're, like, defending this city. You're being overrun with Nazis, and I think the best thing to do here is to just hide in cover and wait for whatever trigger Price to move on, because otherwise you're just wasting ammo. I don't know if it really mattered killing enemies. I took like a few shots at some, but most of the time I just hid behind boxes. And then once you get to where Price says, alright, move across the bridge, I then also opted to just hide and cover, because when I tried, what he'll do is like a tank shows up and he tells you to get on the Flak 88 to take out the tank, but you're completely exposed on the tank, or on the gun. And what I've learned playing several Call of Duties on Veteran is anytime they tell you to get on a machine gun or any type of gun, don't do it, because it's instant death on Veteran. So what happens is if you don't get on the gun, the tank blows it up. But what I did is just hide in some sort of like, it's like a security checkpoint booth. I just hid in there and then killed enemies that came directly in front of you. While doing this, there's a timer for when reinforcements showed up, so I just hid in this booth until reinforcements showed up and triggered a checkpoint. After that, the chapter was over. We then come to probably the most difficult chapter in the game, and that's when you storm the dam. This was difficult for me in particular because, again, it was that checkpoint thing where I played pretty good distance into the chapter without getting a checkpoint. Once I actually got into the dam, I don't know why, but I played at least like halfway through the dam section, like where you're actually in the dam itself, and didn't get a checkpoint. I eventually triggered one, but I don't know why I wasn't triggering it before. This dam section, so when I played it, I didn't know there were two paths. You come to this room that's got, it's like communication equipment in it, and there's a big glass window looking out over the facility itself. I didn't realize there were two paths here. The left path is the more difficult path, so the first few times I was trying this, I was just getting eviscerated. You know, the trial and error, I learned where the enemies were, and I was able to take them out, but there's a part where you come to this section, and there are 4 pillars, and once you walk beyond the pillar, the Nazis actually spawn. There's one that'll spawn directly in front of you, and then one that will spawn to the right on top of a balcony. The first few times I didn't know he was there, and when you die, the camera sort of like does a focus where it shows you who killed you and from where. but whenever I died, I would fall and it would just show the wall. So I thought I was being shot through the wall. I didn't know where it was coming from. But I soon learned that he was up there. And after trial and error, I was actually able to take them out and made it to the next part. An elevator comes up and there's like 5 fucking Nazis on it. And it was just too much doing it that way. The furthest I got doing it that way was actually, you come to this big room looking across like a chasm, and there are a bunch of Nazis on the other side. I took them out, and then I think in the next hallway is where I died, and then basically restarted back at the start of the dam. Once I discovered that there was a right path there, I got a checkpoint at the bottom of the elevator. I don't know why I wasn't getting that checkpoint previously, but I actually got a checkpoint there. So after I got a checkpoint, the dam really wasn't too bad. There were still parts where I died a lot. Yeah, that first bit where I was basically playing halfway through the dam and not getting a checkpoint fucking sucked. I probably spent a good 2 hours on that part alone. But after you make it to the bottom of the dam and you blow up all of the Flak 88 guns, you're then tasked with going back up through the dam. And, you know, there were spots that gave me trouble, but nothing that was overly frustrating. The next chapter, where you're on the back of the truck, I cannot say the same. This chapter was some bullshit. Because the only recourse you have for not taking damage is to crouch. You cannot go prone in the back of the truck. So you're just taking machine gun fire from like pretty much every direction. And they're wanting you to blow up these trucks with a Panzerfaust. And the truck is swaying, so you can't get a good sight. So oftentimes you're missing your shots. And then again, it's trial and error where you don't really know where the enemies are coming from, so sometimes your truck will just get blown up and you don't know where the fuck it came from. So that was difficult there. And what I learned, so he runs out of Panzerfaust. I learned that once you get to a certain point, once he tells you, hey, that's the last one, I learned to save that one and then just kill the rest of the enemies that show up with the gun until you get to the end where 2 trucks converge on you. So I killed one with the Panzerfaust and then killed all of the enemies in the truck just with the machine gun, because I had made it to that point before. And again, this is another spot where there's a long swath of game and you're not getting a fucking checkpoint. I had previously made it to that point and then died there because I wasn't able to kill all of the enemies. This chapter sucked. It's short, but it was just like, I don't know what the game expects me to do. I'm just sitting here dying. We then come to another bit where you're still on the truck at the start. So the chapter after, you're trying to get to an airfield to escape this area. And once you get to the actual airfield, they want you to get out of the truck and then jump on to a Flak 88 or whatever this machine gun, the big like anti-craft machine gun. Like I said, anytime they ask you to get on a gun in Call of Duty on Veteran, it's almost instant death, but you're required to do it here because you have to take out what are they called, Stukas, which are the fighter planes. What I learned is once the planes show up, pretty much all the other enemies will quit firing at you. You just have to focus on the planes. But after you kill all of the planes, immediately turn your attention to the left of the rooftop above you, because enemies just spawn up there. And I was giving the teammate AIs, you know, props in this game, but for whatever reason in this chapter, they just will not kill the enemies up top. You cannot let them, you cannot rely on them for that. So after killing all of the Stukas, turn your attention to the left on the rooftop and kill all of those. That's what I learned to pass this. I actually, after doing that, they want you to get back in the truck and then chase down the plane that you guys are supposed to be getting on. I fucking did all of that, got on the truck, and they took off for the plane and literally died at the end of the mission. I don't know. I don't even know what killed me. I don't know if someone shot me or if something blew up. I was just dead. So it sucked. But after doing it again, I realized that that was the end of the mission. Yeah, something blew up. I don't know what the fuck blew up. But it was dumb because that was the end of the mission there. But after that, we then come to the final UK mission. And you and Captain Price are on a boat, and I think you're trying to blow it up. This mission sucks. This mission sucks. So you start off, you're in stealth. Captain Price is pretending to be German, and they take you to the munitions hold. And then Captain Price shoots 2 enemies, and all hell breaks loose, as it typically does. You know, they can't give you just a break. You start here in the munitions hold, and it doesn't even really, like, Captain Price doesn't say anything. He's just like, place bombs as we go. Your really only guide is the compass marker here to tell you which way you need to actually be going. This, like, first checkpoint sucks ass. Going through and putting all of the explosives on the boilers is just straight ass. Captain Price doesn't help you whatsoever. He just stands at the front of the hallway here, shooting at enemies. And once you go through the first section and make a loop back around, when you start, you're facing a door where an enemy comes out, and that's the first section of boilers. You go through that, you turn to the left, and then you're coming back up another hallway, basically back into the munitions room. And I didn't, like, I thought Captain Price despawned. Apparently he dies here. There's no, like death gurgle or whatever. You don't even know he's dead. The first few times of me doing this, I just got up there and he was gone. I thought he, like, despawned and spawned back somewhere else on the level. No, he dies. But, yeah, getting through that section is just straight ass. But once you get through that and you get up the stairs, you come to a section where your objective now is to get to the lookout tower and then destroy their communications devices and steal some intel. The first few attempts at this of, like, coming out of the hangar and into this open area, I was, like, trying to kill all the enemies, and I opted to kill the enemies to the left and just run for it. Fuck it. But, once you get into the actual area where you're going up to the control tower, there are a few enemies. You basically just watch your corners. But once you're actually into the control tower, like, once you're in the boat, the ship proper, there's not really much that gives you trouble. Again, it's trial and error, just learning where the enemies are, just being prepared. And then once you pick up the intel, you actually get a checkpoint. The part I struggled with most is actually leaving and escaping from the boat. More trial and error. That's basically all I could say about this game, is that the entire thing is basically trial and error, learning where enemies spawn, learning who's got a side on you, who can kill you. But yeah, this one sucked. But after you kill all of the enemies in your way and make it back to the boat, this is where you find out he dies. So once you actually get to the boat, the guy on there is like, "We lost the captain? Damn, that was a very fine man. Let's get the hell out of here." That was when you find out he's dead. And I could swear Captain Price is in Call of Duty 2. After it fades to black, after Sergeant Waters gives you the terrible news, we unlock the Union Jack achievement for completing all of the UK campaigns. Next up, we start the Russian campaign, and US is easy, UK is medium, Russian is just, like, almost impossible. The first mission is, like, you start off in the middle of a cutscene. I die. It doesn't give me the prompt to, like, duck, so there are some planes that come by and do a strafing run. I guess I should have took the cue from everyone else because they ducked down. But, yeah, I think that's, like, the first time I've ever died in a fucking cutscene. But once you actually get off the boat, you come to this, and I'll give them props for, like, a different kind of mission. You come to this area where they're handing out guns and ammo. I guess this is the way the Russians actually did it in World War II to prevent running out of supplies, like to ration firearms and such. They would give one person the gun, and then the other person gets the ammo. And I got the ammo, so you basically play through this part without a gun. I don't know if you can pick one up from enemies that die. I didn't see any on the ground, but yeah, I thought this was an interesting mission, is because you're basically doing this without a weapon. What I learned is that there's a part at the start where, like, I guess a mortar strike hits you, and then it like blows you forward, and it does the slow down screen thing, like the Horror of War thing. I learned that while it's doing that, enemies will not shoot at you. So your best bet is to just advance as far as you can while that is happening, because the enemies won't shoot at you. So once I did that and got to the, I don't know, some guy at the top, once you get to him, he tells you that you're going to be his distraction, so he asks you to run to a car. What I learned is that not to go when he says go, like wait a few more seconds, because when he says go, if you run immediately, I died. Waiting the few seconds, I guess he actually starts taking shots at the enemy. Yeah, once you do that, you actually complete the chapter. The next chapter is another one where, like, I didn't get any checkpoints. I actually advanced so far into the chapter without a checkpoint. Like, I damn near completed it without getting a checkpoint. I had to watch a video to see if it was supposed to be that way, and it wasn't. Like, I'd probably passed 4 different checkpoints to the point that I got. So what I ended up having to do was basically close out of the game and then relaunch it, and I started getting checkpoints again. So I don't know what the fuck was going on there. This chapter really isn't too difficult. Again, it's just learning where the enemies are. That was what was most frustrating about it. It's actually fairly easy. You get a sniper rifle here, so as long as you like stay back and stay in cover, it's pretty easy to take the enemies out. The part I struggled with the most is later on, you meet back up with other comrades. You'll come to this part where you're advancing through a lot of like bombed out buildings. Once you get to the end of this area, there's a machine gun nest at the opposite end and like 3 snipers. And that was the part I struggled with the most. Just the first time I did it, I actually, like, obviously it's not the way to do it. There's a wall to the left of the machine gun nest, and it has a little crevice in it. So what I did is, like, moved into that crevice and then moved along the wall, and the machine gunner can't see you. It worked the first time I tried it, but after, you know, doing it another time, it didn't work. So that was another thing with the game, is that sometimes something you did before works flawlessly, and then other times the game just says fuck you. But what I ended up doing is just crouching down, going prone, and then moving along the ground. The machine gunner can't see you. I was trying to get through it with saving one of the comrades, because I think that also triggers a checkpoint, whether or not you have teammates left with you. So what the game did as the game progressed to make the game harder is just make your teammates dumber. So they just kept walking directly out in front of the machine gun and dying. So I wasn't able to save any of them. But once you come into the next area, it's just this like open, not really a field, it's like a courtyard. You're trying to get to the train station. The first time I got here, I didn't know that there were snipers in this area, so I walked out and immediately died, and I did not get a checkpoint after getting past the machine gun nest, so I had to do the machine gun nest bit all over again. And there was a guy to the right of a wall that killed me the next time I tried, which I was pissed. But finally, we got through that section and made it to the train station. The train station part is probably the easiest chapter in this campaign. I didn't really have any spots that were super frustrating. The sewer part's actually pretty easy as well. Nothing to... So once you actually make it to the train station, they ask you to go into the sewer. Yeah, this part wasn't anything either. It was actually kind of welcome because, like, the Nazis are... There's not, like, hordes of them, as there have been. And there are spots where, like, the Nazis are overhead and you can just, like an assassin, take them out from below in the sewer. Because, again, you have the sniper rifles, so... That was really cool. There's also a voice that comes over the intercom and is trying to convince the Russians that the Nazis aren't bad. They're actually on their side.
Honorable soldiers of the Soviet Red, you have nothing to fear from surrender. The German army will help discipline and will treat you with dignity and compassion. If you wish to live, do not resist. Throw down your weapons and approach the nearest German patrol with your hands above your head. This is the proper signal that you wish to surrender. You will then receive hot food, drink, and medical attention. Once the war has ended, you will be free to return to your families.
So I thought that was pretty funny. But after you make it through the sewers, you then come to the next chapter where you have to advance on, I guess it's an apartment complex. The first part of this of where you're sniping for fellow comrade running up to the complex wasn't too bad, but once you actually get to where you go in the complex, this part is straight ass. Once you get into the complex, you're then tasked with killing all of the enemies on all of the floors. It's that trial and error thing, is you just don't know where any of the enemies are. And like I said, your teammates suck. If an enemy walks out right in front of them, sometimes they'll kill it. Other times, they just let it stand there. Several times, I assumed that because my teammate wasn't attacking that person, that they weren't an enemy. And then they would just kill me. I just don't know. I don't know. It had to be that they just dumbed down the AI as it went. But yeah, killing all of the enemies is the first challenge of this. Once you kill all of the enemies, you do get a checkpoint. But after the checkpoint, you're tasked with taking out 2 tanks, and I spent hours on this checkpoint. So when you spawn in, I had to turn the fucking sound down because I got so tired of hearing it. When you spawn in, the sergeant is telling you,
Here they come! Ready on the anti-tank rifles!
Anti-tank rifles ready!
Machine guns!
Machine guns ready!
Get ready, comrades!
the way he says gun bothers the ever-living shit out of me. It's like some American trying to do a Russian accent, and the way he says gun just irked me to no end, so I had to turn the fucking sound down because I was just hearing that way too much. What I learned, so when you spawn in, you're stuck behind this sergeant, and he, like, you cannot get past him. But what I learned is that if you hold forward, so when you die, you're in the continue screen. If you hold forward while you're in that screen, hit A, you're moving already once you load in. So what you want to do is get ahead of that guy, because if you can get to where the first anti-tank rifle is, the first tank is pulling up. He hasn't positioned himself to fire the gun. So if you can get there while he's moving, you can take him out, and you won't take machine gun fire, or you won't get hit by the shell. Because if you get hit by the shell, it's a fucking insta-kill most of the time. Sometimes I would get hit by it, and it would only take off like a portion of my health. So that's another thing, is there was just no consistency. But once you take out that tank, you immediately want to go upstairs and take out the next tank, because those are required objectives. And what I don't know what was going on. It may have been my controller. It might be just me. but sensitivity of the look seemed to just change on a whim. Like, sometimes it was super slow and sometimes it was super fast. And I could not get a good, like, sight on the tank. And I was just fucking swinging the anti-tank rifle just wildly. And you don't want to waste any seconds aiming at the tank or shooting the tank, because you've only got seconds before he fires the gun. What you want, the ideal situation, is taking out the first tank without taking any fire. Because the second tank, like 9 times out of 10, you're going to take that shell blast. Very rarely was I able to kill the second tank without taking any damage. I was at least 50% of the time able to take out the first tank without taking damage. After you take out the second tank, what I opted to do is, because another tank shows up, and after that you're not required to kill any tanks. A timer actually starts saying reinforcements are coming. What I opted to do was leave the room and then go into the hallway and stand facing the staircase, and there's a hole in the floor where you could see enemies come in through the door in the hole. It would have been ideal to have a PPSH at this point, because the magazine is so large so you don't have to reload it as often. But I only had the MP40, and I really didn't have time to go around and look for another PPSH. So I struggled a bit with that part, and just had to keep doing the tank thing over and over again, so that really fucking sucked. After you kill a certain number of enemies, or maybe a certain time ticks down, you actually get a checkpoint. But my checkpoint happened right as an enemy comes through a door and an enemy comes up the stairs, and my clip, or my magazine, is almost empty. So I had to, like the first few times I died there, I had to quickly kill the enemy that comes through the door, kill the enemy that comes up the stairs. Leaves me like 6 shots left in my magazine. So I kill the enemy that's coming up behind him, and then I get the chance to reload. So that checkpoint kind of sucked. But what I learned to do is that after you kill that enemy, I moved to the other end of the hallway. And the first few times I tried that, I was able to actually survive. But for whatever reason, things changed and it wasn't working anymore. Again, that consistency thing. What I actually did, I was looking for a good position to... There's like a ramp that the enemies are coming up, and I was looking for a good position to where I can get there and just kill the enemies as they came up that ramp. So what I did is, after killing those 4 or 5 enemies at the start of that checkpoint, I ran to the room with the ramp, killed 2 enemies that came up that ramp, and then went into the next room and jumped on the other side of a hole that's there. I thought it was a pretty good viewpoint of the enemies that came up to the ramp, but what I discovered is that the enemies will not attack you here. They actually like just group up on the wall to your left and just stay there. So I utilized that. What I didn't know is that a tank was going to come up on the right and kill me. But the next time I attempted that, I just moved forward to where the tank couldn't see me, and it actually despawns. And then I just waited there in that spot until reinforcements arrived. They show up, kill all of the enemies, and that's the end of that chapter. I lied. The next chapter is the train station chapter. Literal first checkpoint, you spawn in and it's a firefight. So that was a little jarring. Like, this chapter's not too bad. Really the hardest part is once you actually get... Yeah, it is. So this part of the train depot, or it's actually a tank repair depot, isn't too bad. The part that actually starts to give you trouble is the next chapter after that. Again, you spawn in like a firefight. There are actually enemies on both sides of you, so I don't know really how the game expects you to get through this without taking damage. I ended up just running at the start and hiding behind boxes that are directly in front of you, and let my comrades kill the enemies that are at least behind me, and focused on the enemies that are on the left of you and ahead of you. This part isn't really too much of anything. The part that sucks is this next part where a tank shows up, and at first I didn't really know what was happening. it just ended up killing all of my comrades. There's a tank and then a machine gun nest to the left of the tank. And what I was trying to do, again, that whole thing where I think sometimes it doesn't give you a checkpoint if you have no squad mates left. So I was trying to at least save one here, and I think that's where the struggle came in, is because I was rushing to kill all of the enemies here to prevent my squad mate from dying. I failed to notice the first few times I did this that there's actually a Panzerfaust directly to the left of the tank. So the first few times that I killed all of the enemies, I left the tank alive. It would also end up killing the squad mate I saved. So once I actually discovered that there was a Panzerfaust there, after killing all of the enemies at that start, I then blew up the tank. And then I at least had somewhat of a help in this next section. He didn't provide much help. Getting through the hangar wasn't really too bad. You just, again, had to learn where all the enemies were and just pick at them with sniper rifle fire. But once you actually get through the hangar, you then come to a section where, again, your squad mates are in a firefight, and you're kind of behind enemy lines, behind the enemies, so they're easy pickings there. But you are actually awarded, after all of that struggle, with probably the two easiest and quickest missions in the game, the tank missions. The tank control kind of got on my nerves a little bit. I think it's because I was trying to steer it with the left stick like I'm playing Borderlands or Halo, but the steering and forward motion is all done on the left stick. Yeah, the tank missions aren't too bad. Really, the frustrating thing is the just Nazi soldiers with Panzerfaust, because half the time you can't fucking see them. You just take damage from nowhere. Yeah, ending off on the two tank missions seemed like a reward for it. But after you complete the second tank mission, you are awarded further with Victory Banner for completing all of the Russian campaign. So next up are the three bonus missions. I don't know if these were like DLC or mods or whatever for the original Call of Duty on PC, but the first mission, was it Hurtgen, I think is what it's called, was actually fairly easy. The main thing I struggled with is after I died the first time, I took a mortar shell. I actually got blown up by a mine. I think a squad mate stepped on it, but nearly killed me, and then I took some random mortar shell. So when I spawned back in, instead of listening to the captain say his speech again, I just moved past him and just moved on into the level. And I think because I did that, I wasn't triggering any checkpoints. So I died and had to restart the level again, so I actually just sat through it. But once you, it's fairly simple. You're tasked with, going to bunkers and getting intel, and then at the end of the chapter, two tanks show up, and you have to blow them up with a Flak 88. That's probably the hardest part of the chapter, just because, again, you're sitting on a machine gun, you're in the open. What I ended up doing was taking out a few of the enemies that show up and then getting on the gun. I actually had a moment where I blew up the first tank and went to fire at the second tank, and there was just a German soldier there. So he was standing in front of the tank. When I fired, it just killed the German soldier and didn't blow up the tank. It's like that German soldier took all of the blast from that shell. It did not move forward any further than that. I actually then got off the flat gun and the tank missed me. But when I got back on, I was all disoriented and didn't know where I was aiming, and the tank blew me up. That was actually pretty amusing. But this part here is probably the hardest part of this chapter, and it's really not even that hard. You just kind of have to kill enemies. But once you blow up the two tanks, the sergeant congratulates you for I think he's actually a captain. I'm sorry. Yeah, the captain congratulates you for doing myself proud, and he can hardly believe that they've done it. And then you unlock Tank Breaker for completing Hurtgen. Next up is Rocket's Red Glare, and this is probably the hardest of the bonus missions. At the start, you're providing covering fire for the sergeant. It's not really too difficult. You have a sniper rifle. I actually made it pretty far into this level. I made it so far that I was like, I might be able to beat this one on veteran without dying, and then immediately died. So that was cool. But the part that actually gets tricky is when you actually get to the launch site and you're tasked with blowing up the rockets. You have to like learn the optimal way to take out the enemies here. So what I did was at the spawn of the launch site, I went around the back side to the right, took out the enemies that spawned there, and then worked back to the left side bunker. Killed the machine gunner there. 4 or 5 enemies spawn directly in front of you, almost as if the game's telling you, hey, get on the machine gun and mow them down. So I do that, and I leave the bunker. You then kill the dude with a grenade in the bunker to the west, throw a grenade in the hole, and then to the north, move forward slightly and snipe the guy that's there. There are trenches directly behind the bunker that's on the west. I threw a few grenades in there to kill those enemies, and then actually advanced into the west side bunker, killing all of those enemies. Once you make it down and fuel the rockets, you get a checkpoint. So checkpoint confidence, you go back up. It's pretty much smooth sailing after that. There are a few straggler enemies in the north side bunker when you're trying to escape, but once you kill them, you escape, you exfil from the site, and you unlock the Rocket's Red Glare achievement. And the last bonus mission is Flag over Reichstag. This one isn't too difficult. The main part that gave me trouble was the section where there's about 3 machine gun nests. You're tasked with blowing up Flak 88 guns and the tank, so your tanks can advance. What I ended up doing was sniping all of the machine gun nests and then moving to the left side of the tank. Sometimes the machine gun will see you, but most of the time it doesn't. I then like crouched under the machine gun, put the bomb on it, and blew it up that way. You come to an open courtyard area right in front of the Reichstag, and you're basically just providing... You basically just sit there until the tanks show up, and then once the tanks show up, the enemies kind of stop firing at you. You do have to be wary of getting killed by a fucking shell from one of the tanks. You advance into the Reichstag, and then there's not really any parts within the Reichstag that gave me trouble. You go to the, like, iconic room. I guess it's like a conference room or whatever, where all of the Nazis will hold their meetings. This is basically Third Reich level in Call of Duty World at War, just not nearly as difficult. Yeah, once you actually make it to the roof, one of your comrades waves the flag over the Reichstag, and we unlock 3 achievements here. So we get Flag over Reichstag for completing this chapter. Then we get Won the War for completing the campaign, and then a War Hero for completing the campaign on veteran.
Mother, a few days ago, we waved the flag of the motherland over the top of the Reichstag in Berlin. The war, at last, seems to be coming to an end.
So that leaves me with 2 achievements. The remaining achievements I have left are Pea Shooter and Survivor. Pea Shooter is to complete a level with only using the pistol and no melee, and Survivor is to complete a level without dying. So I started a new game, went through training again. I had the game on Greenhorn, which is the easiest difficulty, and my god, is it easy. It's crazy how, like, much easier it is than veteran. You get ample health kit. Enemies don't kill you in 2 shots. They're kind of dumb and don't really fire at you a lot of the time. Yeah, I went through the 2nd chapter, which is the chapter directly after training. It probably took me 5 minutes to go through it, just using the pistol and not dying. I almost ran out of ammo. I think I had exactly 5 shots. But yeah, once I completed the chapter, I unlocked my Pea Shooter and Survivor, netting me the Call of Duty Classic full completion. I wouldn't say this is the most difficult Call of Duty campaign on Veteran, it certainly wasn't the easiest. Faulty checkpoint system is probably its biggest flaw, like playing halfway through a level and not earning a checkpoint on Veteran really sucks. But it doesn't have the just grenade spamming that World at War has. There are a lot, like the tank bit in the Russian campaign where you're in the apartment complex really sucked. I don't know. I would think Call of Duty 3 is a difficult campaign on Veteran just because the game is a buggy mess. World at War is difficult just because of the grenade spamming and just how quickly you die in that. But you do have, like, the health regen. But like I said, the health in this really didn't matter because you were dead in 2 shots anyways. I guess it mattered in that tank part because taking a shell sometimes didn't kill you. But yeah, that was the Call of Duty Classic campaign and my 100th full completion, as well as my final few gamer score to 250,000 gamer score. I am now at 250,000. If you like these sort of achievement hunter videos or hell platinum trophies, now that I'm at 250,000, I feel like I should give my PlayStation account a little more love and work on some platinums. But if you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. If there are any games you recommend me trying to go for a full completion in, leave it in the comments down below. If you want me to actually attempt and get all of the gamer score in wet, leave those in the comments down below. If this video gets fucking, I don't know, 20 likes, I'll go for it. But other than that, check back next time for whatever I do. Bye-bye.